Heating and air conditioning. Broadleys.net, your trusted source for 3 generations.
Switch to T-Mobile for Business and get up to 90 days of service free via virtual rebate on your business plan. You get a great deal, the largest 5G network, and first-class benefits like Microsoft 365 on us. It's better for business and only with T-Mobile for Business. Limited time offer. Stop in store for details. Plus taxes and fees for some plans. Virtual Express MasterCard within 8 weeks of receipt of valid submission. Complete port within 60 days. See T-Mobile.com for 5G devices, coverage, and plan details.
This is South Jersey's radio home for the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers. WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's sports leader.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
It is Game Night on Monday night edition of the show on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we are live on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Live on the website 973ESPN.com. And we are streaming video live in the Matt Black Kia Studios on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. I am your host, Josh Hennig. Of course, we got a lot to get to, just an hour to get to it. Of course, 609-403-0973 is the text board. We are also live on the streams on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, where you can comment as you watch the show as well. Just follow 97.3 ESPN. We're going to get into the Sixers after the All-Star break coming up with Kevin McCormick coming up in about 20 minutes, a little less than 20 minutes from now, actually, as Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, what's going on with them? Obviously, we're still waiting on a lot of things to happen with that. Sixers trade targets, an interesting name that McCormick wrote about over the weekend. I saw some people give McCormick some flack about this trade target. I don't think you should be giving flack. And I'm going to get McCormick's back coming up about 20 minutes from now because I think it's actually a very smart trade target. You can read more about it over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Some guy from Cleveland. Go to the website or go to the app to check it out. The full article. Speaking of the website, 973 ESPN.com. So this story about Jeffrey Lurie from Chris Mortensen. For those who don't know, just a really quick history of this. So over the weekend, Chris Mortensen was on a Sports Center special about the NFL draft. It was talking about Todd McShay and Mel Kiper's mock drafts. And Mortensen went into this discussion about Hurts for the Eagles and why the Eagles are not going to draft a quarterback at 6 overall, despite the fact that some people are reporting their interest in the quarterback position. I'll play you in the Mortensen audio in just a moment. He then went on to this morning jump on Twitter, okay? Now, anybody who follows Mortensen should know that he is not a big-time tweeter, okay? He's not one of these guys who goes around tweeting incessantly, okay? He's not like, for example, Schefter or Woj. So when Mortensen is tweeting something, you know it's serious, okay? You know it's real, okay? It's not something that's just he's being, whatever. No, he's being serious about it. So there was a local reporter who covers the Philadelphia Eagles who made a comment about what Mortensen reported. And Mortensen, who doesn't always tweet, responded to that tweet. And what I'll do over here is I'll share it for you guys watching on the stream so you can see exactly what I'm talking about, okay? So this is the Mort tweet, all right, for those of you wondering. And I'll read it out loud for you guys listening in your cars or on the streams. Mort says, quote, "I would not report the Eagles have internal unanimity on Hurts as a QB number 1, but sources say the boss, Jeffrey Lurie, has instructed his group to prioritize making Hurts successful in 2021 as opposed to creating a true competition." Then Mort went on to quote tweet his reply to say the following. Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie made it fairly clear after firing Doug Peterson he wanted franchise to re-embrace a long-range philosophy that resulted in a Lombardi trophy. The roster has had some age. Speaking of guys like Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Jason Peters, gone. Zach Ertz heading that way as well. Then Moore replied to his own tweet and followed up by saying this: Jalen Hurts showed promise, energized the team, but yes, only 4 games. Many owners share vision, especially when it comes to quarterback. Do you think Carson Wentz scenario unfolds without Lurie's input? Lurie wants to build around Hurts and see if he's the guy, but other quarterbacks will be added. So again, a guy who does not tweet a ton spent part of his day today tweeting all of that. Now, that is all on top of this, what started the whole thing, what Mort said about Jeffrey Lurie and the Eagles over the weekend on the SportsCenter special.
Jalen Hurts is the guy. Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, has basically sent the message to his personnel department and his general manager, Howie Roseman, that he wants to do everything he can to help Jalen Hurts be successful and not bring in somebody to compete for the job. Now, they have a new head coach, Nick Sirianni. He understands that's what the owner wants. What the owner wants, the owner gets.
What the owner wants is what the owner gets. See, this is why I find it so interesting. This is why I wrote about this at 97.3ESPN.com. For this level of reporting to be going on about the owner's involvement in all of this, to me, I find incredibly fascinating. I find the whole thing very, very intriguing, because when you think about this, all right, when you think about what literally is being put out there to everybody by what Chris Mortensen said, Chris Mortensen believes in his reporting. He's not somebody who just puts out something flippantly. So Chris Mortensen is saying that Jeffrey Lurie is the catalyst behind basically Hurts being the quarterback, behind everything that's going on. And I think that everyone has to start accepting the reality that Jeffrey Lurie he's pushing the buttons. He's saying Doug Peterson was let go because he wanted to change the philosophy of the organization. That Jeffrey Lurie wants Jalen Hurts to be the quarterback. This is not cheap stuff here. This is serious. So for everyone who gets up there and has something to say about the Eagles, I ask you a question. Are you willing to say those things about the owner? Everybody loved the owner when you won the Super Bowl. Everybody loved the fact that Jeffrey Lurie promised you a Super Bowl when he bought the team 26 years ago. Took him a while, but he got you here. But now we're finding out that maybe the owner is a little more involved in the football operations than we previously thought. Text board is open. 609-403-0973 is the text board. 609-403-0973. Furthermore, Jeffrey Lurie saying, Chris Mortensen saying all this. How do you feel about the owner? How do you feel about the Eagles? You can comment as you watch on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973ESPN. This changes a lot of the perceptions about this team, especially for the people who hate Howie Roseman. Because you heard Chris Mortensen say it right there. I'm going to play this again. I'm going to try to rewind it to the point where it makes the point. Listen to the end of this cut again.
The job. Now they have a new head coach, Nick Sirianni. He understands that's what the owner wants. What the owner wants, the owner gets.
Sirianni understands what the owner wants is what the owner gets. That's a pretty powerful statement. That sounds to me like there's some decisions being made by Jeffrey Lurie that maybe we didn't know about. And that's why when Mike Gill asked Jeff Mosher, by the way, Jeff Mosher on the Inside the Birds podcast, they have covered this Jeffrey Lurie stuff very intensely in the past 2 years. That's why Mosher replied to the Mortensen report this way.
I think it is reflective of a pattern that we've seen over the last few years of Jeffrey Lurie being more hands-on in his decision-making. And we've had this conversation before about the hiring and firing of coaches like Mike Groh. We've had this conversation before about draft picks. We've had this conversation about the vision of the franchise for long term. So clearly this falls in line.
This report falls in line with other people's reporting. Man, this changes a lot of what we may say or think about this team, past, present, and future. Because if the owner is as involved as it seems like he is, that changes things. Now, Mosher also talked about the conversation because they've had Joe Banner, former good buddy of Jeffrey Lurie, was running the front office for years. They was let go. That was 10 years ago. Banner, he says, hey, Lurie used to be one way. Looks like a little bit different now. This is Jeff Mosher earlier Football at 4 on the Sports Bash.
You know, we've had Joe Banner on our Inside the Birds TV show many times, and Joe is, since being removed from the organization, I think has been more candid, and he has said that Jeffrey has always asked a lot of questions, asked the type of questions that made you know that he wants to really know what's going on inside out, but that he's never, quote unquote, meddled in decision making. But I think some of the things that you're hearing about and that we've reported on the last 2 or 3 years cross the line of just being inquisitive to kind of calling the shots.
I mentioned this in my article at 973ESPN.com. Listen, no one's saying that Lurie is a meddling owner like Jerry Jones or Daniel Snyder. Nobody's saying that he's a lightning rod controversial figure like Cal McNair of the Texans or Stephen Ross of the Dolphins. He's not Jim Irsay where he just says stuff, or Mark Davis where he just says stuff. Jeffrey Lurie is not those guys. So no one is sitting here and saying that he is that person. But what I am wondering, and I think all of you should ask the same questions, 609-403-0973, along with watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973ESPN. I ask you guys out there, does this change how you look at the Eagles offseason? I think it does for me. For me, I look at what is going on in the Eagles organization, and I'm starting to have questions about what was really Doug Peterson, what was really Howie Roseman, what was really Carson Wentz, what was really Joe Douglas, what was really fill in the blank. We have made so many assumptions and assertions and theories and projections about this organization. And it seems like maybe half of those opinions that are out there are being completely falsified by this Mortensen report. There's been reporting for almost 2 years now that Jeffrey Lurie was the man behind J.J. Arcega-Whiteside being drafted. By the way, speaking of drafting, here's the other part of what Mort said over the weekend. The other side of this coin is what he said about the Eagles drafting Jalen Reagor. Chris Mortensen on the Sports Center special.
One thing that happened with the Eagles, which screams to me why Jamar Chase should be in play for this pick, is that they did not stay true to their draft board. And their personnel department has a lot of Ozzie Newsome disciples from Baltimore. Ozzie always stays true to the draft board. Somehow they got off the draft board, and at number 21, they took Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver, instead of Justin Jefferson, who had a higher grade on the Eagles board.
Somehow it happened. This is out of character for these guys, Morton says. And he's right. Joe Douglas, Andy Weidel, and Douglas and Weidel brought Ravens guys with them. That's their philosophy. And Mortensen saying, hey, they didn't follow the board. Well, whose decision was that? Who signed off on that? Do we really believe that Howie Roseman was doing something that the owner didn't sign off on? Do you think Carson Wentz being traded, Jalen Hurts getting drafted, any of these things that have happened, do you think that really happens without the owner signing off on it? It's definitely something to chew on. It definitely changes the way I look at the Eagles moving forward. Let's get a text in here at 609-403-0973. Still to come, Kevin McCormick going to talk Sixers with us coming up at the other side of the break. Texter says, so do you think that Jeffrey Lurie was behind the Wentz benching? That's over at 609-403-0973. My answer to that is, I don't know if he was directly behind it, but I do think that there is something to be said for the fact that I had the report just a few months ago during the season that Lurie was telling people, I would like to see Hurts on the field. So maybe Jeffrey Lurie didn't tell Doug Peterson, you need to bench Wentz. But maybe Lurie, who Peterson himself said, Jeffrey and I have had conversations about a lot of things. That was Doug during the season. Maybe part of those conversations was, Doug, I'm getting tired of watching Wentz. This is the same Jeffrey Lurie that stormed out of practices. This is the same Jeffrey Lurie that said after he was discovered that he was not going to be at the Cleveland game. Oh, I was with my mother. Convenient excuse. You have to wonder, Texter. Maybe Lurie didn't tell Peterson to bench Wentz, but maybe he's told him, I like to see more of Hurts. And maybe Peterson interpreted that as benching Wentz. A lot to consider, a lot to chew on. We got more to get to this hour. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show and comment at 973 ESPN. We'll be talking Sixers as well. Coming up next, Kevin McCormick, our Sixers beat writer, here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the free 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And you can watch the show live at 973 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The Sports Bash with Mike Gill Monday through Friday. You can watch the show. Game That with Josh Hennig. You can watch the show. You can listen on your app on your phone. You can listen on your radio. You can get 97.3 ESPN now anywhere you are consuming content. And it's all right here in the Matt Black Kia studios. Matt Black Kia wants to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia in the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action.
They scored!
The Flyers host the Buffalo Sabres tomorrow. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN and listen live on the free mobile app.
Get the credit you deserve during Matt Blatt Kia's Madness in March sales event with 0 down and 0% APR financing for 75 months. Get to Matt Blatt Kia in Toms River and Egg Harbor Township because at Matt Blatt Kia, we want to get you approved today. And you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Plus, we want your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. So get out of that old car you hate. Come in today or visit us online and get the credit you deserve. Put 0 down and get 0% APR financing available for up to 75 months on every new 2021 Kia Sportage or take $2,500 off MSRP because
it's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 or 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on $1,333 per $1,000 borrowed. All Kia Motors factory rebates to dealer. Go to mattblackkianj.com for complete details. Expires 4/5/2021. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
And now more Straight Talk from Straight Talk. The big wireless companies say they're the only way to get the best coverage.
Because they've got like a gajillion cell towers?
Something like that. But Straight Talk Wireless runs on those same towers, so you get the same great networks for up to 50% less.
I wonder if they're counting that one in Kickapoo, Kansas.
Oh boy. Switch today and get our unlimited plan for just $45 a month with 25 gigs at high speeds and no contract. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise.
Savings may vary. See straighttalk.com.
If you're struggling with a drug or alcohol addiction, now is the time to take action and get professional help. Call Recovery Centers of America at 1-888-RECOVERY today. You are worthy of recovery from your addiction, and calling RCA will be your first step in getting the help you need. Recovery Centers of America answers the the phone and admits patients 24/7. And because safety is a top priority, all patients and staff are routinely tested for COVID-19. RCA's expert team of physicians and medical professionals will treat you with compassion and dignity and provide an evidence-based treatment plan that is custom-tailored to your specific needs. Recovery Centers of America at Devon and Lighthouse are local and in-network with insurance providers, so they're best-in-class inpatient and outpatient care, offered both in person and via teletherapy, is affordable and accessible. Make this the year you conquer your addiction. Call today, 1-888-RECOVERY. That's 1-888-RECOVERY.
What's in store for your business this week at Staples?
Printing you new signs for the times.
Get back to business with custom printed signs and sales materials. Staples has hundreds of designs to choose from, or just upload your own.
And now at Staples, get 15% off signs, posters, or decals when you spend $75 or more.
Some items printed same day when ordered before 2 p.m.
Save big on custom printing at Staples.
Ends 5/29/21. Exclusions apply. Limit one offer per customer. See store associate or visit staples.com/signage for details.
Good morning, privates. Good morning, Drill Sergeant. I mean, seriously, what a pleasant morning. The sun is shining and the birds are chirping. You seem to be in a good mood today. Astute observation.
He's probably happy because he found out Honey Nut Cheerios can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
They're even shaped like hearts. So, in lieu of the obstacle course today, I propose a nice meditative nature walk. Does that sound delightful to everyone?
Yes, Drill Sergeant! Happy Heart Shapes are back for a limited time. Learn more about Honey Nut Cheerios by picking up a box at your local store.
If I'm not commuting anymore, where do I really want to live?
While you handle life's questions, Merrill Guided Investing helps you manage your portfolio and invest for your next move with the option to work with an advisor at a low cost and minimum. Merrill, a Bank of America company. Visit merrilledge.com/investing goals to get started today.
Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, both a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member SIPC. Investment products are not FDIC insured or not bank guaranteed and may lose value.
Switch to T-Mobile for Business and get up to 90 days of service free via virtual rebate on your business plan. You get a great deal, the largest 5G network, and first-class benefits like Microsoft 365 on us. It's better for business and only with T-Mobile for Business. Limited time offer. Stop in-store for details. Plus taxes and fees for some plans. Virtual Express MasterCard within 8 weeks of receipt of valid submission. Complete port within 60 days. See T-Mobile.com for 5G devices, coverage, and plan details.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We are live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and at 973ESPN.com, the 973 ESPN mobile app, and live on your radio at 973 ESPN FM. We'll talk more about the Eagles stuff coming up in just a bit, but joining me right now on the Boardwalk on the hotline, Kevin McCormick is our Sixers beat writer for 97.3 ESPN.com. Couple great articles that popped up this weekend with Kevin. He joins me now on the stream live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Kevin, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing good. It's good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you in the virtual flesh. So before we get to the Sixer stuff, I want to ask you this question I asked the people just earlier about the Eagles thing, because I think it does apply to the Sixers a little bit, because people have a view of Josh Harris and that ownership group, right? People have a very specific, they look at them sideways a lot. You know what I mean? Like every time I hear about Josh Harris at the game, I'll just pop up Twitter on my phone here and I'll look at something. There's always that one guy to be like, I don't care about Josh Harris. He needs to go back to owning the Devils, right? But people view Jeffrey Lurie very differently. And I feel like, doesn't it change how you view things of the Eagles, for example, now that it's coming out that Jeffrey Lurie is instructing the organization to start Jalen Hurts and build around him, and that Lurie was more involved in decision-making? Doesn't that make you look at the Eagles differently, similar to how maybe Sixer fans look at Josh Harris?
I think it could lead to a tricky situation, just because I feel like being an owner of a team is always kind of a gray area. Sometimes they're like the rather, they're not seen and they're just kind of the guy that's looked at that cuts the checks and not really there. Then you have the super energetic owners like Steve Ballmer, who's courtside at every Clippers game, losing his mind like it's game 7 of the finals. But
right.
Hearing an owner kind of dip their hand into the business that much, I would say is kind of concerning, just because as the owner, you're hiring all these guys to run the team and you're kind of supposed to just sit back in a sense. So the fact that it's coming all the way at the top, I wouldn't say it's great, to say the least. And as much as people want to hate on Josh Harris, he definitely is involved. So far this season with the limited fans and stuff, pretty much every game I've been to this season, he's been courtside, like engaged in the game and there and around. So I'm not, the biggest Josh Harris stan, but hearing Jeffrey Lurie come out and say that he is choosing the quarterback and pretty much overmining his GM and all these guys that he hired to run his team is questionable at best.
I just find it very interesting that like how we view owners in different sports. Like people view Josh Harris one way and Jeffrey Lurie another way and John Middleton another way. And the Flyers don't even have an owner to point to. It's Comcast, some dude somewhere who's cutting the check. It's like an inanimate object. So for all we know, it could be Gritty who owns the team. But, it's just I just feel like in sports, we view owners so strangely based on a set of circumstances that may or may not be true, but we just feel that way.
I feel like the owners kind of bring it on themselves too, just because there's so many different avenues of an owner that you could go to. And we've seen a lot of times in the past where owners have dipped in and tried to kind of be the guy and create their own team. And it's gone very bad. And I think it can create a really sour taste in the fan base, just because you can fire a GM, you can fire a coach. If you find out the owner's the one pulling the strings, then there's no real, correction of that. You can't force a guy to sell the team, although Philly Sports Twitter tries as hard as they can to get these owners to sell their teams when they don't like what's going on.
I can guarantee you it's not just Philly Twitter, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's a few other fan bases like the Knicks who are involved in that as well, for sure. Kevin McCormick joining us here on the Boardwalk kind of hotline on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at KevinMCC973 for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. Speaking of Sixers and the NBA, obviously the big story yesterday was no Embiid, no Simmons for the All-Star game. They were in contact with somebody who tested positive. They themselves are not tested positive. We know that there's all kinds of protocols for this. Obviously, best case scenario, Kevin, is they test negative throughout the week and then come back by Thursday or Friday. That's best case scenario. But I want to ask you about worst case scenario. What if Embiid and Simmons do test positive and they're not available for a week or so? How do you think that changes this team? And does that maybe change what Daryl Morey does before the trade deadline?
I don't know if it would necessarily change what Daryl Morey does, but it definitely has the potential to derail the second half of the season. The Sixers did a great job ending that final homestand on a high note, winning 3 of 4, picking up that huge win over the Jazz, and they've built all this momentum to lead themselves to the way. Joel Embiid's looking like an MVP favorite. The Sixers are atop the conference, so if both your All-Stars, or at least one, test positive and you lose them for 2 weeks, that's huge. I mean, we've seen it in the past. It's really derailed teams. If you look at a team like Miami, who lost Jimmy Butler, who lost Bam Adebayo, for times that, it can really cost you with games being played every other day. You could lose for 2 weeks, could cost you 8 games in a sense, which can really derail you. And this second half of the season, it's going to be a sprint. I mean, there's a lot of 3 games in 4 days, a lot of back-to-backs, and the Sixers have some really grueling stretches against tough teams, especially with Western Conference stints. So I would say it would be a very, very rough situation if they were to lose them for extended time. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you only lose them for these first couple of games, I think, due to contact tracing. They'd have to sit out at least a week, but there's still so much to be unknown. I mean, hopefully they continue to test negative like the reports came out yesterday, but I would say this does have the potential to be a very scary situation.
Yeah, and it's not that we're worried specifically about like an outbreak or anything like that. It's that you take the 2 best players off of this team, and people can argue about Ben Simmons all they want. He's one of the best players on this team. Okay, I'm not arguing that point. Someone's argued that point at Josh Hennig on Twitter. But the point is that you take 2 of the best players off of this team, you're going to have problems. And this second half of the season schedule is, for lack of a better term, congested with games. Like there's almost no opportunities for breaks outside of a day or two once in a blue moon. So if you don't have Simmons and Embiid for, let's say, 4, 5, 6 games for any reason at all, I don't know how the Sixers hold on to the number 1 seed in the conference.
And you also have to look at the effect of if one of them were to test positive. This has really hurt athletes. I mean, look at Seth Curry alone. He was playing great before he contracted the virus. And when he came back, his play has been a bit of a roller coaster. So not only could you potentially lose one of your stars for 2 weeks, but it could take them weeks to get back to form. And with Joel Embiid playing the way he is, that could cost them an MVP trophy. So in the grand scheme of things, and even Ben Simmons, he is very crucial to the operation here with his defense, with his facilitation. So, if one of them were to come down with it and it really shake them up, there will be long-term impacts in terms of it can hurt them in the schedule. It can hurt them in the standings, them not being their full ready selves for the postseason. So, fingers crossed that everything comes out fine. Yeah, you don't want to lose them for the first couple games coming out of the break, but you would you'd live with them not being able to play against Chicago and Washington if it means getting them back for when the going gets tough.
I'm going to ask the question that people have been asking on social media, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer to this, Kevin. So even if you sideswipe the answer at me, I'm fine with it. You want to swipe left on Tinder at me, it's fine. But here's the deal. This is now the second time NBA players have gone to a barber, come in contact with somebody who tested positive for COVID, and now have had to sit out games. Saw this with the Rockets earlier this year with Boogie Cousins, with John Wall, and I forget who the third teammate was. They were all getting a haircut, all right? So now, this is 2 instances where this has happened. I remember the NBA bubble, they quarantined barbers and had them on the campus with them, and they were all testing COVID daily. I just have to wonder, is there maybe something to this? Is there maybe something to the fact that we all thought we knew who the safe or not safe people were, and maybe these players are really not following these COVID protocols as tightly as they should be? I mean, look at the whole situation with Kyrie Irving and Harden going out maskless to places. Like, are we really sure that these guys are really even following the protocols as much as they should be?
I would say it varies. I don't think I could sit here and point fingers and say they're doing right or they're doing wrong. If you look at the terms of the six, I mean, even from a grand scheme of things, they put out the report every week. Shams or Woj talk about how many players were tested and how many new cases come about. There's been a lot of weeks where there have been 0 new cases. So although at the start of the season there was a couple scares and teams kind of lost players at times and it looked like this was going to get really bad really fast, I would say it's gone pretty well. There hasn't really been a serious scare lately. There's been some hiccups here and there, but that's going to happen with, how much these guys are traveling and the interaction and such. So I think it's very tough to say that they're doing everything perfectly, but I also think it would be very overreacting to say that everything's going wrong and they're not following protocols at all.
Fair enough. That was an excellent question to a loaded question by you, Kevin McCormick, joining us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN, on Twitter at KevinMC973. Kevin, let's get into one of the articles you wrote over the weekend about the Sixers and trade targets. Now, you wrote about Larry Nance Jr. I saw you get a little flack about that on social media. People were like, Larry Nance Jr., who the heck is that or who cares? First of all, I think it's an excellent point that you made in the article, that the guy can play multiple positions and he can guard multiple positions. And frankly, I don't think the Sixers have enough versatility on their roster outside of the main guys. So to me, Larry Nance Jr. makes a lot of sense. Now, to get Larry Nance Jr., though, what kind of trade are we looking at, though, Kevin?
It's a salary match. So right now he sits at about an $11.7 million cap hit. I tried to mess around in the trade machine a little bit to see how many different combinations could come about. You could acquire him for Mike Scott, Terrence Ferguson, and one of Tony Bradley, Furkan Korkmaz, and Vincent Poirier. That's obviously just from a salary matching standpoint, whether you want to, you throw in picks and such, but it would cost you at least 3 contracts to bring him in. But he is an interesting target. I agree with a lot of what you said in terms of, the boxes that he checks. He's a very fascinating target for the Sixers. He's a 6'7" forward. He's athletic. He defends. So he fits that identity of what the Sixers have built here. So I think targeting a guy like that is someone you really should look to bring in. And not to mention, he's improved his 3-point shot this season. He's posting a career high in terms of percentage and in attempts per game. So the fact that he's a guy that could come in, potentially be an upgrade from Mike Scott, which is something that I've said they should look to aim for previously. And in the grand scheme of things, he's also locked up under contract for 2 more seasons. So this is more than just a rental. This is either a guy that you could bring him in and, he can be a key bench piece as this team looks to take multiple swings at winning an NBA championship, or come the offseason, he could be that salary filler to help Daryl Morey get a trade done, because after, coming into this offseason, you're really only going to have the 3 big contracts of Simmons, Harrison, and Embiid. And then other than that, it's going to be, smaller contracts like Milton, like Thibault, Isaiah Joe, things like that. So you're going to need those, mid-level contracts if you want to get a deal done. So there's a lot to like about Larry Nance Jr., both from a play standpoint and in terms of a long-term standpoint of him being an asset. So if they can get it done, although I don't know how I feel about using 3 contracts, if you were to use it, he is definitely a guy that, you could pull those assets in and say it was a good move in the end.
Would acquiring Larry Nance Jr. then exclude you from getting PJ Tucker? Because we know Tucker and him, they kind of play the same roles.
I would have to say if you get Nance, there isn't really much need for Tucker. The only thing I would say the difference is I think there's more small ball potential with PJ Tucker than there is with Larry Nance Jr., but that's also mainly because I've never really seen Larry Nance Jr. play the 5. Maybe it's something they want to explore with, maybe not. But outside of PJ Tucker coming on a buyout and taking the very bare minimum, if you get Larry Nance Jr., I don't see much of a reason of using what's left of your assets to go and get a player of a similar archetype.
Yeah, we know his dad played center some, but I've only seen, I've seen him play center in terms of like, he's the biggest man on the floor kind of thing, not like an actual, like, I'm building the defensive structure around him playing center, like you said. So now with all that being said, there's a whole nother scenario I think he needs to throw out there as well. We know the Kyle Lowry thing won't go away. There's a way the Sixers could 3-way deal this thing and get Nance Jr. and Lowry out of the deal, because at the end of the day, having to get Lowry straight up is going to be difficult anyway. So why not get 3 or 4 teams involved and everybody gets a piece of the action?
I mean, if you could get it done, I would say it would have to. I'd have to look at it to give my honest opinion. But
the reason I say that is because I've run the numbers, and for me, it's a lot easier for the Sixers to get PJ Tucker and Kyle Lowry in a trade than just get straight up Lowry, because of the way the numbers work and the contracts have to be moved, and then you get draft picks involved. So to me, I would assume it would be not exactly the same, but it would be a similar concept in terms of you're not, because the problem with the Raptors is Lowry is $30.5 million. So you're not going to be able to just dump 6 guys on the Raptors, then be like, we'll take all 6 guys. Like, they're probably going to be like, do we really want all 6 of these guys? Whereas if you get a third team involved and you give that team a sweetener, then you tell them, hey, take on a couple of players, help us make this deal work. And then maybe they give the Raptors something that they want, kind of thing.
It definitely would be interesting with those 2 teams, just because with Cleveland trying to trade Drummond, if that's an asset that Toronto finds interesting, that could be that salary filler that puts you over the hump with Lowry. Maybe Cleveland's looking more for picks while Toronto's looking more for playable players. So if you could swing it all around, if you could do it all in one fell swoop, I would say go for it. But there's still that question with Lowry of, you still have to shake up the starting lineup, and Nance gives you that fit. So I guess everything at the right price, you would have to, gauge it from there. But getting Nance and Lowry in one fell swoop would be impressive from Daryl Morey, and I would say it's definitely not something out of his wheelhouse, as the guy's been definitely known for making his big splashes.
That's very true. Kevin McCormick here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN, 97.3 ESPN.com. Check out all of his work about Larry Nance Jr., as well as Sam Cassell is who you wrote about this over the weekend. But I want to get to the All-Star game with you, because you and I were one of the handful of people on planet Earth who actually watched the whole thing. I think most people checked out at different points, like the slam dunk competition or the 3-point shooting contest, or maybe they didn't even get to the Elam rule at the end or whatever. But my initial thought on the All-Star game last night was, and I have to admit this was not my original thought. Somebody texted this to me. They're not a basketball fan like I am or like you are, but he told me, he said, the best thing about the All-Star game is that I got to see a bunch of players I would never see otherwise. And I thought that was a great point, because there's a lot of stars in this league, like legitimate stars, a lot of talent in this league. And I think that because of just the way the league is and the way the schedules work, that not every fan gets to see all those players. And that was one of the big takeaways for me. And that was, you get to watch more of these other guys, a little bit more of Jaylen Brown than maybe the average fan gets to see, right? Maybe a little bit more of, for example, Devin Booker or whoever it may be, that gives you a little bit of an exposure to, there's a lot of talent in this league.
Without a doubt. And even more in the sense of how many guys get snubbed. So, I mean, I would say it definitely can help draw the casual fan in if someone is out there and really only watches the nationally televised games. Maybe they don't see much of a Zach LaVine or a Julius Randle. So I think it definitely could draw more fans in to kind of help them more from a league-wide standpoint. I always think the game is fun to watch. Obviously, you take it for what it's worth. These guys, they want to go and show out. Giannis is going to have his big dunks. Steph and Dame were shooting from half court. I always think it's a fun watch. I thought it was hilarious that Team LeBron tried so hard to make Rudy Gobert look good when he brings nothing on offense. And there was no need for him to be in that game. But what are you going to do? That's really my only qualm with the All-Star game. I think part of it in the sense of you should really just put out 2 full rosters who can just show out and put on a highlight reel offensively, because in the end, that's what it is. Yeah, they've tried to do the whole 24-point thing in the fourth quarter, which worked great last year, but was kind of a dud this year because of how big the gap was. There was no way Team Durant was coming back. So I would just take it more, let them put on an offensive showcase, put guys on those teams who can put on a lot of highlights, whether it's the big dunks or the deep threes. It's what the people want to see because, diehard fans, yeah, they might tune in for a little bit, like you said, and they might tune out. But if you want to bring in the casual fan, that's how you do it. They want to see these stars. They want to watch for the fancy dunks and not, they're not going to sit there and nitpick offensive sets and pick and roll stuff. They want to see Dame end the game with a half court shot or Giannis dunking from the foul line.
All right, before I let you go, you mentioned dunking. To be honest with you, I was really mad about the dunk contest. I thought Obi Toppin was robbed. I felt that Anthony Simons dunk was not as wonderful as I really thought it was. Like, first of all, you're supposed to kiss the rim and you pull away from the rim. It's like if you were like 12 years old and you're going to kiss a girl and you pulled back or something. Like, that's the first problem I have with it. Second of all, literally you were giving the guy grades for a dunk because he almost kissed the rim, literally. Like, I'm sorry. I've seen a ton of guys go face to face with the rim. That's nothing special to me. I know Toppin's dunk in the final round was not the most exciting in the world, but it's a dunk contest. It's not I think you might have done something, but I'm going to give you points for it anyway. And this is my problem. Dunk contests are supposed to be entertainment, right? It's not supposed to be the perfect thing. Who cares if the guy misses once or twice as long as he gets it in, right? And it's like, we all know who Obi Toppin is. I needed more from Simons than just that. And I feel like I didn't get my money's worth from the dunk contest this year.
I actually thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I thought it went by pretty fast. I also really like the idea of the dunk contest taking place at halftime of the game. But I do fully agree with what you said about the end. The fact that Anthony Simons won on a dunk that he didn't even really do what he wanted to do was kind of questionable. As a big Obi Toppin fan, I agree he got robbed. I also feel that Cassius Stanley was robbed with his first dunk. That first dunk was amazing. He went through the legs with his offhand in the air, and he only got like a 44. That's criminal. It's just, but all in all, I thought it was good. I thought Anthony Simons' first dunk was his most impressive, but yeah, that one at the end where he won off a dunk where he almost kissed the rim, but didn't, and they were like, oh, but what it was kind of like but what if he did kind of thing, and they kind of just handed him the trophy with that. So I agree. Questionable finish again.
Well, you mentioned Andre Iguodala on Twitter. There's a lot
of he was robbed in 06. It needs to be said every year.
I feel like there's like the last 20 years, there's been about 4 or 5 guys who've been robbed, right? At this point, like it's getting to the point.
Gordon.
Aaron Gordon, absolutely. Like, how many times are we going to see a guy get robbed before we're just like, we need to change the scoring system or something? Like, picking random dudes who dunked in the NBA might not be the solution here.
I think it's just people get so caught up in the hype factor of it. Like, everyone was so hyped because it looked like Anthony Simons kissed the rim. So I think because it got all that buzz, it worked. And like Nate Robinson beat Andre Iguodala because he jumped over. Wait, was that the year he jumped over Spud Webb or the year he jumped over Dwight? Like, it was just, all the hype of it. Like, Aaron Gordon sat down in midair one year and somehow didn't walk away with a win. This was a 6'9" forward absolutely clearing his mascot and finishing the dunk. It blows my mind that he has never hoisted that trophy. I mean, credit to Zach LaVine. He's incredible in his own right as well, but what Aaron Gordon was doing at his size, he was robbed. Andre Iguodala in 06, when AI threw it off the back of the backboard and Andre brought it from behind the backboard to in front of it and finishing. Come on, man. He deserved that trophy in 06.
He's Kevin McCormick. You'll follow him on Twitter at KevinMCC973 for all of his Sixers and NBA coverage. Check out 973ESP.com. As all guests, he appear in the Boardwalk kind of hotline. Kevin, appreciate you jumping on and humoring me with my NBA thoughts today.
Anytime, Josh. You have a good night.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to your texts next at 609-403-0973. You also can comment as you watch on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Comments, if you drop a comment under the video, it pops right next to the screen here as well. So we got some good comments. We'll get to those as well coming up here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live, as I said, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter here in the Matt Black Kia studios on 97.3 ESPN FM.
Sign up now for this year's $1 Million Bracket Challenge. Registration is underway now at 973ESPN.com and the free mobile app until the tournament begins. The listener whose bracket has the most correct will win a $500 golden getaway in Atlantic City. Thanks to our friends at GoldenNuggetSports.com. And the top 20 listener brackets will receive a free bet at GoldenNuggetSports.com. So register for the $1 Million Bracket Challenge.
Hell yeah!
Now at 973ESPN.com or the free mobile app. Must be 21 plus to place a bet. Only available in New Jersey. Free bets are for online sportsbook only. Please see website for terms and conditions.
A national championship.
So head to 973ESPN.com or the free mobile app and register for the $1 Million Bracket.
On some models, excludes Corvette. With GMF financing, excludes prior sales. See dealer for details. If you've been waiting for the best deal you can find on a brand new Chevy, then your wait has paid off big time. Right now, during Bennett Chevy's March Markdown event, you can save up to 25% off many of our most popular models. That's right. With Bennett Chevy's famous GM supplier employee pricing, plus you keeping all the rebates, that's up to a whopping 25% off MSRP. Plus, for a limited time, there's 0% financing available on our hottest Chevy models. Got an old beater? Get it to Bennett for an unbeatable $7,000 minimum towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. That's at least $7,000. Imagine what we'll pay for a good trade. And our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So buying at Bennett's always a pleasure with no need to negotiate, plus there's never any sales pressure. Get to Bennett Chevy during our March Markdown event and find new roads. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Making popcorn for movie night?
Whoa, who are you?
This is your wake-up call from TracFone Wireless. What if every time you tried a new streaming service, you had to buy a new TV?
That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, some wireless companies do that when you switch, make you buy a new phone.
Right.
But TracFone Wireless lets you keep your phone and your number and your network and gives you unlimited talk and text starting at $20 a month.
Seriously, who are you?
This is your wake-up call, people. TracFone Wireless. Now you're in control. Oh, you're burning it.
Oh, no.
See terms and conditions at TracFone.com.
If you're an athlete or live an active lifestyle, aches and pains can be part of the game. That's where Trifecta Therapeutics comes into play. Trifecta Therapeutics is a premier sports rehabilitation physical therapy center located centrally for anyone in South Jersey, right in Glassboro. Their team of the highest skilled docs takes a unique approach to physical therapy and rehab. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a finely tuned athlete, they treat the pros and the Joes. To find out more about Trifecta Therapeutics and how they can help you, check out TrifectaTherapeutics.com.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Well, as the world's blandest man, the idea of insurance made for me is almost riveting.
Big fan of beige?
I find other neutrals too unpredictable.
That's cool. Liberty Mutual's just here to protect your home with customized insurance.
And here we've got my doorstop collection.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
When the forgotten poor are in need of healing,
They wait for a ship unlike any other. Mercy Ships, a floating hospital staffed by volunteers, heroes of mercy who donate their time to save lives.
Every human has the right to have a place at the table of the human race.
If you could just see the smiles that you get when lives have been changed, then it would make it all worth it.
To learn more about Heroes of Mercy, go to mercyships.org.
When you want experience, go for the best. Pick up the phone and call Dennisville Fence.
Right now, Dennisville Fence is installing your neighbor's new fence. Right now, another neighbor is signing up for their new fence job. Right now is the best time to get started on your new fence or railing project, because right now, the pandemic is causing major supply chain delays. What used to take days can now take weeks or months. So the earlier you start on your new fence or railing project, the more likely you'll finish your project on time, and the sooner you'll enjoy more privacy, safety, security, and style. Don't delay your new fence or railing project. Get started today. Dennisville Fence is open, and we are now scheduling new estimates for spring installations and also offering material sales for DIY and new construction projects.
Go with experience, go for the best. Pick up the phone and call Dennisville Fence. 1-800-499-FENCE.
Visit DennisvilleFence.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We are live at the Matt Black Kia Studios, hanging out with you. We'll get to your thoughts and comments in just a bit. 609-403-0973. Also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill back in tomorrow, 2 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Game Night being brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. I gave you some picks that won over the weekend. I hope some of you took those picks. One of the things I love about this time of year, basketball, same game parlays with FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. Jump on there, you take a money line, point spread, player props, whatever's on there. You can find them all. Listen, if you were someone who last night who took the over on the All-Star game, combined it with the spread for Team LeBron, $10 would have netted you $50 last night. It was a pretty nice juicy odds situation going on there. Heck, if you would have Giannis scoring the over on his point totals in a three-way parlay, you would have gone nuts. But you only can do same-game parlays with FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right, FanDuel Sportsbook has now same-game parlay insurance. New existing users can get up to $25 back in site credit every day if the parlay falls one leg short with same-game parlay insurance. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today. Sign up with my promo code Hennig and try same-game parlay insurance for yourself. That's Hennig when you sign up with FanDuel Sportsbook. If you already have FanDuel Sportsbook, you get on the action right now. You're grandfathered in already for same-game parlay insurance. But if you're a new user, you got to sign up with my promo code Hennig at FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play. Full terms and conditions at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I want to get to at least one comment here. It was, first of all, well, two, actually. A couple of people texted in here. 609-403-0973. Texter says that Jeffrey Lurie was 97.3% of the reason why I went to the bench. That was clever. That was very clever. Also, Dan EHT says, can we really think the Sixers can beat the Nets? The Nets are a super team. I would say they compare to the Heat and the Warriors. My problem with comparing them to the Heat or the Warriors is that the Heat and the Warriors had better supporting casts than the Nets do, right? You know, the Warriors had Andre Iguodala. They had other guys on that team like Sean Livingston. Who's the other guy on the Nets right now? It's hard to find that. Like, I think the Nets are hoping that guy can be Blake Griffin, but I don't think he's that guy. The same thing with the Heat. The Heat had Mario Chalmers hitting a big shot, Ray Allen hitting a big shot. They had Joel Anthony doing the dirty work down low. They had other guys like Udonis Haslem on that team. It wasn't just the big three. So I understand that people wonder, can AMA beat the Nets? I wonder if the Nets can stay out of their own way, because I still wonder, is this team going to really be healthy for an entire series? That Kevin Durant situation is very concerning. Hamstring. I mean, what's going on, man? The only guy that's really healthy on that team is Harden. Harden is the only bull on that team. The other two guys are the workhorses that James Harden is. Harden plays every game, every minute. Durant and Kyrie, if they're not available for a game or if they're having a bad night, is Harden really going to be able to carry them for a 7-game series? I don't know. I just don't see it happening. By the way, 3-2 on the picks over the weekend. I told you NBA All-Star game over. Aljamain Sterling, Jan Blachowicz both hit. We didn't hit on the parlay. And Adesanya lost. I mean, that was a fun fight, though. The Adesanya loss was a very, very fun fight on Saturday. I hope you all got to enjoy it. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow.
So you think you have unlimited data?
Recalculating.
Think again. If you have unlimited data on a network you can't trust, your data is limited, and so are you. Set your smartphone free with the unlimited plans from Total Wireless. Get 4 lines with unlimited data on the nation's best network now with 5G, with 100 gigabytes at high speed, then 2G for just $25 a month per line.
You have arrived at your destination.
Get unlimited and save. Total Wireless. Do amazing. Available at Total Wireless stores. See TotalWireless.com for terms and conditions.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
Have you ever tried to set a goal or accomplish something only to have that goal or